respond to those people to help them see that, wait a minute, character matters. It's not just giftedness over character. And you address this in the book, and I really appreciate it. In a culture, by the way, where it's end sum. I mean, it's whatever you need to do to win, do it. How do we ever get the gospel out there? Do it. It's Paul saying, I don't care how the gospel's preached, at least it's preached, right? How do we respond to that and help our people say that character really matters in the middle of all this?
Yeah, I mean, I bring this up in the book, and I think you've pointed it out, which is that we have a culture that, and let me clarify, we have a Christian culture, sadly, that is willing to almost turn a blind eye to lots of things as long as there's quote unquote success in play, or that there's some, in their mind, worthwhile thing that they're trying to achieve, or as long as someone is really gifted or talented. And I think we can see that in the political world, we're not here to talk about politics, that same mentality often is used. As long as my candidate can get elected and get the policies I want in place, I don't care that he's a this or that. And used to be Christians did care about character, and it seems like more and more they seem to care less about character in their politicians. And arguably the same thing is happening for pastors. We say, well, can't have it all. He's accomplishing a lot of good things. I think that misses the mark on so many levels. For one is, it doesn't reckon with the damage that a person with bad character can cause, and I try to point that out in the book. But more fundamentally, and I think this is the point, is that it's a violation of Scripture to have someone in ministry in a position of authority that doesn't meet the criteria and the standards and the qualifications for that person. And a person who's a belittling, domineering, authoritarian, heavy-handed person is completely outlawed and ruled out from all the passages in Scripture that speak of qualifications for ministry. So if someone says, well, look, just let it happen, I'm like, you're violating Scripture. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? God has a reason why there's qualifications for ministry, because it reflects on him, it reflects on his church, and it can really do real damage to God's people. One of the things I tell people is like, look, if you don't, you probably don't, if you think spiritual abuse isn't a problem, then you probably underestimate the influence that a pastor can have. Their words carry much more weight than you realize. They do. It with great potential for blessing and great potential for harm. And if you say spiritual abuse isn't going to be a problem, then you don't reckon with that reality that the Bible actually speaks of, is that a person in spiritual authority has a big impact, which is why character matters so much, because they can do great damage or they can do great blessing.
How do we help our people see this, though? In our clip culture, where it's all about presentation, it's all about the clicks, the likes, they have a really wrong definition of what success is.
Yeah.
How do we help people correct this definition of success when all they can see is that moment, that the person they're attracted to, that dynamic persona? How do we help them see that?
Well, in a social media age, it's going to be really hard. I wrote the book because I think, and my book just barely begins those conversations, I think we need a macro rebuild in Christian space about the way we conceive of leadership and authority. I think we need to start almost from scratch and rebuild the structure, because I think the structure we have looks on the surface like it's the biblical one, but I think there's so many problems in there that I think it's going to take a complete rebuild to reset people's sort of calibrations of what a good leader should and shouldn't be. And so to answer your question, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. My book was intended to be one little tiny dot in this larger conversation. Maybe it could be the kind of dot that leads to other dots, a spark, if you will, that starts a larger movement. I don't know. I'll leave that in God's hands, but I think we got a lot of work to do. And on the seminary side, we have a lot of work to do. I just think we haven't given enough attention to what it really should be like to have a leader. If we could get that in the minds of the church, I think they would pick different leaders. See, part of the problem here isn't just that the leaders can be this way. Obviously, they can be, although most pastors are godly, great people. But some can be this way. But the bigger problem here is that the churches want people this way. And this is the thing that we really got to reckon with, is that they're not in position because they force their way in. Churches have invited them in and cheered them on and created their own celebrity culture around them. Why are churches doing that? And we've got to figure that out.